Hey, James and Arlene, thank you so much for being on the Team Us podcast.
So fun to be with
So,
you.
so we wanted to, okay, so Ted knows how you guys met.
I do. It's
But
been a
our
while since that's taken place, but
but our listeners might not. So I would love for you guys to tell us how God brought you together. And because interview time is short and we have a lot to talk about, let's see if you can do it in like 3 minutes or less.
Hmm.
Let's see, should James do it or should I do it? You do it,
Rock,
sweetheart, and then
rock, paper,
I'll
scissors,
embellish.
baby. Rock,
Yeah,
paper,
how
you
about,
you
how
scissors.
do
about
it.
both? Maybe both, and that way we can get both sides of the story.
Both
Mm.
perspectives.
You started, dear, and I'll jump in.
Oh boy.
Okay, we're down to 2 minutes.
Yeah, I know. Seriously. Well, uh, well, how could I not? Hey, she's irresistible. We met in grad school. We met in a nursing home. She would go every single week, and she also went to Toastmasters. So from there, we became friends, and then the friendship started to blossom. I saw her at a dance one night, and she was wearing a fancy dress, and my eyes were opened.
They were previously closed, apparently. So then I will have to clarify because so you got graduate school, a convalescent home, and Toastmasters. So you're thinking like, okay, wait, they're in grad school, but then are they really old? And then what is Toastmasters? So Toastmasters is a public speaking club. And then we really did have that little outreach at the convalescent home. So it was very convenient because we had like a preview of in 50 years, what our lives might look like. So that was great.
So Toastmasters is not a culinary school.
It is not a culinary school, and had I had seen James and had liked him for a very long time, but we were just friends. So we were friends, and then Ted famously knows about this because James wanted his parents to meet my
That's
parents
funny.
because his
That's
parents were
funny.
recently retired. So he said, "Let's get our parents together." And my parents were like, "Why are we meeting this boy? I don't understand."
This is the
And I
very
said,
first time we
they
ever went
want the
out with each
parents.
other.
Yeah, he wants you to meet their parents. They're retired and they're lonely. They just moved. And Ted, you were there too. So then my mom was really confused. There's two boys there. I'm very confused. And I was
Oh,
like, it's not about the boys, mom. He just wants you to meet the parents.
that's great.
I forgot all
That's
about that.
hilarious.
That's right. So Ted was right there, right from the very
He was
beginning.
right
And
there.
you were there? And you were there?
That's right.
I was not there.
Okay.
So the friendship turned into more. And one day, James, we went to Outback Steakhouse and he took out two roses, a red rose and a yellow rose. And he said, are friends. And then I want to see if there's anything more. And so
Oh, my
finally,
lands.
the eyes were opened. And then from then on out, we had been friends for a long time. So then we were kind of like, this is it. Like we are inseparable. This is the right thing. And it went
That's
from
great.
there. Yeah.
Goodness gracious.
That's
20,
awesome.
26 years later. My goodness.
Yeah, just
Goodness.
about.
We're like old people now. Goodness.
I know.
We are old, sweetheart.
Okay, so you have 3 kids, so you have a lot of experience parenting as a team,
Mm,
right? So sometimes, like Arlene, you've written about how sometimes parenting can supersede
Yes.
being a spouse. So what have the two of you done to make sure your marriage takes a front seat?
And it's almost like it's not sometimes, it's almost like all the time, right? Because when you have that baby, then your attention goes to the baby, which is the right thing because the baby needs so much help. But then many times as the babies grow up, we are just thinking like, oh, they're so much more needy than your spouse that your spouse kind of takes the back seat. So this is something we have experienced that other couples experience. I think in our mind, like the philosophy is our marriage is important. Like we can't let our marriage suffer because that will make the kids suffer. So just kind of that knowledge that you both know that this isn't all about the kids. This is about us. Like we have to be healthy in order for the family to be healthy.
And along those
Yeah.
lines, I think number one, when your priorities are clear, your decisions are easy. So Arlene and I, we got this from the Ezzos, where we were already a family. We were already a unit. We made a bond before God, and our kids didn't define us as a family. So our kids were welcome members into what we were already having. So their lives had to revolve around us. That sounds silly, but it gets a little more complicated as the kids get older. And one thing that we decided to do is provide leadership, specifically the dad, and that would be me. Um, the kids are awesome at manipulating mom. I remember one time, like she was making, it was crazy. Like it came down, she's making scrambled eggs for one, sunny side up for another, and oatmeal for another. I'm exaggerating. I'm like, what's for me? I mean, it was just like, oh my God, no, we do not do that. There's the simplicity that came into the play because I was a little resentful. Because the issue for me, forgive me for being so talkative, was that my wife was so tired. She had the she had the time, but she didn't have the energy. She couldn't keep up with it. And now what I see happening, especially as the kids get older in terms of simplicity, like we had one thing that was martial arts when they were growing up. One thing. And as they got older, it was like martial arts and piano, okie dokie. And then with the sports, it wasn't like 2 or 3 activities. I don't know how some of these parents do it. Well, the bottom line is they don't do it. They do it for their kids. And then when they come home to each other, they have the time, but they don't have the energy. They're exhausted. And it's their own fault because they didn't provide that leadership by saying no.
Yeah, that's wise. Well, we've been fortunate that our kids tend to like the same things,
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so they all love to do theater and dance and that kind of stuff. And at points they've said, hey, can I do sports? And I'm like, no, I'm sorry. Can pick one or the other because we just cannot stretch our time that thin,
Yeah.
especially as they get older and they all want to do all kinds of things.
Yes, but I'm going to go back and say, even when they were young, they didn't have choices. You didn't have a choice whether you were doing martial arts or not. You didn't have a choice whether you were doing ultimate frisbee or mountain biking or skiing. You didn't have a choice.
You just got in the car. Yeah, me included. Me included.
And to be
You
honest
went
with
where the driver was going, right?
Exactly.
and that decision, believe it or not, is one of the best decisions that I made because one of the things that I see happen is parents get older. I'm fast forwarding the tape way ahead, but they don't have common activities that they do together. Nobody, very rarely do I speak to a dad that, where they'll do so they ping pong, bowling, whatever it is, skiing, basket. They don't do anything together. They're usually spectators. So we got this common camaraderie around these activities that, to be honest with you, I'll be able to do them in like 20, 30 years, God willing. God willing.
That's
He's
awesome.
gonna
I mean,
be
we've
80
taken,
years old going down the mountain on his skis.
That's the plans.
you'll be like, my kids kept me young, right? Yeah. I mean, we've done things like go to like Comic-Con type conventions because our kids
Yes.
love it. So we're like, let's take an interest in what they love and do it with them.
Yeah.
Which is cool because you are spending that time together and making those common interests. Okay, so
I want to go back to your
Yeah.
original question too. So like then there's also, and this isn't something we have done awesome. Okay. So we're just kind of trying to catch up with it. So the new interest we have in common is we're going to dance lessons. So a lot of times we do things together with the family, like everybody, but then you're also realizing like, oh, we need to do something that's just the two of us. And then we had talked about it for a long time. So in Balboa Park, which we live in San Diego, they have this ballroom, this huge ballroom, and they're very cheap dance lessons. And it's like a bunch of people 50 plus that are really good at dancing, right? So James and I come in there, we don't know what in the world we're doing, but it's super fun. So like finding something that the two of you can do is really good, and let your kids see that you're doing an activity together.
that's cool. Ted, we might have to start taking dance lessons.
Yeah.
That would be fun.
Ballroom dancing would be a lot of
Yes.
fun.
It would be a lot of
right?
fun.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So do you guys ever disagree on how to parent? And if you do, how do you find agreement in a situation and
Yeah.
approach it as a team?
I think value wise, we have a lot of agreement. So, like the values are pretty similar, but the execution of how do those values get lived out, is very different. So for sure, the biggest difference is I want to make life easier for my children. And James wants to make it so that the children make our lives easier. So that it's like, we have children for a reason. Why are they not doing the chores? Why are they not doing the dishes? Why are they not why are they not like biking themselves to school? Why are you driving them to school? So I think that is one of our largest that comes up again and again and again. So if like, I remember when the kids were little, younger, elementary school, if it's cloudy, they'd bike to school and I'd say, oh, it's cloudy. Like it might rain. I better let's drive today. And then James would be like, it's not going to rain. Just have them bring like a little rain jacket, get out the door and go. So it's very different, like how we approached it. I think that's a really good example of how our mindsets are so different.
Moms are easy to manipulate. Very easy to this day.
See, and then I would see that as no, it's not manipulation. that is, oh, that the mom would want to be caring and like take care of that. See, so it's so funny.
I will
It's
say this,
interesting.
I gotta give Arlene a big plug here. So I'm a strong brew. I am. I'm from New York. I'm like a bull in a china shop sometimes, especially with my kids. I love them dearly. They know I love them, and as a result, the Bible says love covers a multitude of evil. As a result of my love for them, they know I get away with a lot in that sense, in the sense that I can push them hard. Um, Also, my ways. This is like the Bible. My ways are not your ways.
That's what you would say to the girls and to,
My
yeah.
ways of parenting are not Arlene's ways, but it needs to be said that Arlene didn't short circuit me. She didn't be like, no, this is the way to feed the baby. She didn't do any of that. Where she let me kind of grow as a dad and make the mistakes. That's really important because I felt the freedom to kind of explore, to become a dad. Because when you first got this thing going, you want to be good and competent, and you don't have a clue of what you're doing. You really don't. But I remember one time I had to feed Ethan, and he was in, and I was busy. I was super busy, and Arlene was out and about, and I put him in his little chair, and I put a little blanket there, and I put his bottle like right there, and he was like stuck, just like eating, drinking all by himself. And Arlene came and was like, "That's not the way you do it." I was like, "He's doing just fine." But anyway, that type of stuff. Now, when she said that's not the way you do it, she didn't give me a lot of that. She really didn't. She was like, okay. She kind of bit her lip. But
That
I
was
think
a
it's
more
really, really
extreme
good.
example.
Also, the other thing I will say along those lines, in terms of about being on the same page, like it was really important. You only get like 18 years to get this parent thing right, and it leaves lasting memories, like that will last generations. It really does. Like I still got the thoughts and the mindsets and the tapes, if you will, of my parents in my brain. I mean, goodness gracious, it's been many years. Um, we read a lot of books, and we read a book about spanking. We read a book about, we always tried to stay like one step ahead of our kids, and reading those books actually put us on the same page. It's very, very helpful. So I don't know if I can give
That's
you a better argument, better for instance, where we disagreed, but we were really on the same page. We really were on the same page for the most part.
It's a
and
good
it's
rhythm because you kind of balance each other out. Like sometimes the kids need the firmness of like get out the door, and sometimes they need the like, hey, just come on in and I'll drive you. So it's kind of nice that there's two of us, so in all of our marriages to realize this isn't a curse that we're different. It's a blessing to be different and to be able to lean on each other's differences.
that's really cool. It sounds like maybe you have also helped each other fine tune your parenting skills
Mhm.
as you've
Yes.
gone.
Absolutely. I remember when Noelle was small, when I like, let's say she's 3 and I could not wash her face. She would make a big fit and just it'd be like this big thing. But she would just lean over to the sink like a little angel when James washed her face. And so finally I was like, I guess I have to humble myself and ask him, how did you get her to do that? So it took me a long time, like weeks. And then I asked him, like, how do you get her to do that? And he's like, she knows she can get away with that with you, but she doesn't get away with it with me. So I think it's also like this willingness to humble yourself. And when you see your spouse doing something good, to ask like, well, how do you do that? And try to learn from it.
Yeah,
Along the lines of humbling yourself, it's also appropriate because I am such a bull in a china shop sometimes. I am open to my wife's like criticism, like, sweetheart, you should have been a little bit more gentle, or you should have said so and so, or you need to go apologize to Noelle, or whatever the case is, and to be open to that.
Yeah.
Now, whenever Arlene corrects me, it needs to be noted that she'll never do it in front of the kids. It's
You
always,
must be the united front in front of the children
yeah,
and have those conversations behind closed doors.
there's ego that's there, especially with the guys. There's ego, there's hubris, there's all that kind of stuff. And for Arlene to protect that is good. Now I can go eat humble pie myself, but it's nice that she doesn't do it in public.
that's awesome. So, what would you tell a couple who is struggling to prioritize their marriage? Like, is there one simple, say they just don't even know where to start? What is one simple thing that they could do this week?
I think so. There's something I do with National Marriage Week, and National Marriage Week is February 7th to 14th. And they have this thing of connect daily, date weekly, and get away regularly. And I just love this idea of a daily connection so that every single day you look your spouse in the eyes and there's some kind of rhythm, whether it's we always eat dinner together or before bedtime, we talk to each other and we sit on the couch and talk to each other for 5 minutes, or we take a walk around the block after dinner together, something where it's just the two of you. It can just be a few moments or minutes, but it's your phone is down. You're looking at each other, you have each other's undivided attention. I think a daily rhythm of this is super important so that days don't go by where you're like, I haven't really found out how my spouse is doing. Like, I've really no idea because we're just living together side by side. This is not good. So, some kind of rhythm that's very easy for you to remember. I remember like a trucker was telling me, like, he's on the road all the time, but at a certain time of day, they always like text each other. So, something that connects you every single day to your spouse. And then that weekly date is a really great place to start. And I always tell people, because James and I think we espouse to date weekly, but if you espouse, you try like once a week, it's probably going to get 1 or 2 times in a month, and that's okay. That's like good. So have that on your calendar that you're also dating and still going out with each other.
I'm going again, when your priorities are clear, easy, your decisions are easy. What do I mean by that? For me, that's a centering question. My centering question that I ask myself frequently is, what would I do if I were still dating Arlene? So it could be like me dressing myself in the closet. Well, if I were dating Arlene, I wouldn't wear this shirt again for the second day in a row or the third day. Let's be honest, for the fourth
Like, you were
day.
wearing that five days in a row, dear. Well, you wouldn't do that when you were dating.
There's this filtering question. I ask it all the time. If it's Valentine's Day, would I make a fuss if I were dating her? You better believe it. Would I make a fuss or a birthday? Yes. Would I make a fuss or a birthday or Christmas or whatever? So I just asked this filtering question: what would I do if I were dating Arlene? And that actually gives me clarity. Like, it kind of brings me back to center. It kind of, because we get pushed around, our priorities get pushed around by life. They do. Like, it's busy. The other thing, in terms of very, very practical, one of the things that Arlene and I did, and I would say, what were those activities that you guys did when you were dating? And I'm not talking about the big, oh my goodness, we went out to this crazy dinner and all that kind of stuff. I'm talking about the simple things. So one of the things I do, I find it to be a centering activity, um, is to go for a walk around the block. If one of my kids are going like sideways, we're going for a walk around the block. If I feel like Arlene and I are haven't really had a moment to kind of connect, let's go for a walk around the block. It's not a big deal. It's not a big deal, but it is a big deal because it's just a matter of us to connect. So in terms of simplicity, I love that. I just love the walk around the block, and I love that centering question. What would I do if I were still dating my spouse?
Those are some great suggestions. So, Arlene, you have some books on marriage and parenting. So, where can listeners go and find like more about those and
Yes.
connect with you?
Yeah, you can go to my website, which is simply my name, arlenepellicane.com. And 31 Days to a Happy Husband. That is James's favorite. So that's when it's for women to read, but it's about how can I dote and dream about my husband again. And so I interviewed husbands to find out what their wives did to make them happy. And then Parents Rising is a really good book just to get on the same page with your spouse about, wait a minute, they are not supposed to be pulling us around. We are supposed to be the ones giving leadership in this home. So how can we as parents be more effective in how we are raising our kids together? That's such a good book to read together. So arlenepellicane.com, Parents Rising, 31 Days to a Happy Husband, and you can get those where books are sold.
Thank you. And thank you, James and Arlene, for coming on and talking to us. I mean, I was reminded of a lot of things that I think we need to get back to practicing. And I'm
Absolutely.
sure that our listeners are going to be encouraged too.
Right.
Thank you
Awesome.
so much for
Thank
having
you.
us. It's been so much fun.